Good morning, everybody. It is a sacred Sunday, complete with my dogs, who, of course, went nuts barking the moment I was getting ready to start recording the show. So, but I don't have, they're saying goodbye to my friends. So, welcome to the Sacred Sunday Show. I'm, of course, Love Coach Scott Katamas, and we have a wonderful, wonderful guest today. Our guest is Lloyd Barde. You're going to be hearing all about him in a few minutes. Hey, calm down. Ah. So I want to welcome those of you who are in our Zoom room, my guests. And I see some of our regulars. There's Alan and Denise and Pat and Wanda. And of course, any of you watching live on Facebook. And certainly want to welcome the majority of you that watch the show, which is the replay, the recording. And we're going to be talking all about music with a man who loves music, has dedicated his life to music and to bringing music to us. And I am really happy. I just put the spotlight on Lloyd Barde, and we're going to learn all about Lloyd today. I had the opportunity to meet him through Deborah Giusti. I've known of Lloyd. He's semi-famous or infamous, depending on who you talk to. I met him through Deborah Giusti directly when we were visiting Ashland, Oregon in August, and immediately really appreciated what a wonderful man he was. Got to know what he was doing. He's put on great festivals, and probably all of you have listened to music with artists that he's helped to promote and make successful. And many of you probably attended his festivals. So we're going to learn all about Lloyd, his amazing life. Welcome, Lloyd.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here with
Yeah,
you.
and thank you for your amazing service to our world. I'm going to lead a brief meditation and then I'm going to drop into Lloyd. So I'm going to put the full spotlight on me for a minute. But I want to encourage everybody, as I get ready for this meditation, I want to encourage everybody to um, drop in, maybe put away any other devices, and unless you're operating a motor vehicle, let's close our eyes and let's drop in for a moment together. Starting with the breath, breathing at your own pace, and bringing all of your attention inside into your body, into your beautiful body temple. As we slow down and we look inside, just let my voice gently guide you. And what's going on inside of your beautiful body temple right now? How are you feeling physically? Any places in your body that could use some extra love or attention? How well resourced are you? Have you had enough food, water? How was your rest last night? What's going on emotionally or energetically? Are you happy, relaxed, or maybe carrying some anxiety or some stress? There's no right or wrong answer. There just is the truth of what is. And whatever is, we want to acknowledge and be present to. So taking a moment to just honor our beautiful body temple, to notice what may have come up for us as we were looking inside. And because today's show is all about music, music is the universal language, and music is one of the most wonderful experiences we can have as spiritual beings having a human experience. It's music that inspires us, that some of our greatest moments have been listening to music or having a powerful experience while wonderful music is playing at a concert or at a club or even at home, just listening to some of our favorite music. So let's really be in tune with our beautiful body temple and our ears so that we can listen. We'll just close this meditation, this visualization, by asking everybody to make a promise to themselves of a way you're going to honor your body temple today, perhaps throughout our time together this morning. And to think about what is some of the music in your life or musical moments that you cherish. What are musical moments that you cherish? We'll share a little bit about that today. So when you're ready, opening your eyes and coming back. Hi there. There you are.
Hey.
It's good to see you. Ah. Hey, Lloyd.
Hey, Scott.
Anything come up for you during the meditation or special musical moments?
Gratitude. Still giving thanks. That one goes all year. And just relishing my musical journey.
Well, let's get right into it. Tell us some of your early childhood memories that maybe influenced and inspired you on this life path that you've been on around supporting music.
Yeah. I was born in 1950. In 1956, Walt Disney put out a movie that was called Fantasia.
Oh, wow, of course.
And I have the most vivid memories. I mean, my inner view went into full three-dimensional, and something about it made sense to me. The opening scenes, I think, were Arthur Fiedler conducting an orchestra with these wild colors. And when he struck the gong, the whole screen went psychedelic technicolor. And I went, I'm home. And I could really understand all of the music and how it connected visually. You know, the hippopotamus is dancing and Mickey Mouse. And I mean, I'm still there. And so that established something inside myself, in my soul, where music was always visual. So when I put on concerts, which I amazingly did about 300 of them to date, it was always a visual experience. The people in the audience, who I considered friends, they were all welcomed and thanked. They were all visual, moving beings. And so when I was the MC, which was an acquired skill, I could see that and I could pull that into a closer tuning. So yeah, music forever. And then my dad was a classical music buff. As soon as he got home from work, he put on his favorite record. No one could mess with it. When we went on road trips, it was classical music the whole way. And if he went into the store or the gas station and one of my sisters or I changed the station, he knew it immediately and changed it back. So that was very fun. I sang in the choir and was told to stand in back, and, you know, a very common thing for many of us. And once I kind of started lighting up and coming into the music world, when I was in college in Seattle, every day, I made sure I was out of school by noon, went into this little used bookstore in the U District called Puss and Books. And I bought 5 record albums every day. They were $1.60 each. Not a large expenditure, well worth my allowance. And I just started getting into it. And once I started, I have never stopped.
I'm loving that example, Lloyd. And I'm 5 years younger than you are. So I didn't see Fantasia when it first came out, but I definitely have enjoyed it a few times. And, you know, it was such a historic film, and it actually did not do well when it first came out. People didn't know what to make of it. And now, of course, it's considered a classic. And I always remember, of course, the whole part with Mickey Mouse and the sorcerer, you know, and where he and the mops start multiplying, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, that was a recurring experience of things getting out of control as a theme in my inner life.
Now, who was like the first musical artist? Was it the Beatles, or were you old enough to really get into Elvis Presley? Who was the first musical artist that really grabbed you?
Well, I saw Elvis on TV because that was the late 50s. And my sister had a little 45 player and used to play the Fleetwoods, which was not exactly my style, but those were marker points. But when I was 14, I had a summer job, and there was a company, honestly, called Ace Novelty Company, which was the name of the company. And they had summer parades and different things that they got the job to sell souvenirs. That's what I did one summer. So they got the Beatles show. So I got to go see the Beatles in 1964.
Whoa, you actually saw the Beatles live?
It's so vivid. And I knew of them. Everyone did. It was overnight sensation to the...
At Shea Stadium, I assume?
Hmm?
Was it the famous Shea Stadium concert?
No, this was in Seattle at the Seattle Coliseum.
Oh, wow.
And this was, on their first tour shortly after Ed Sullivan that summer. And I went with my friend, and we were selling round buttons that said, "I love George, I love John." And people were so fanatic, they thought we were part of the Beatles. It was out of control. And these little binocular things that flip open.
Oh, right, I remember those, yeah.
It takes you about 3 feet closer. And we sold hundreds of those for $1.50. And we felt like part of the show.
Oh,
but I can tell you briefly the show. They played for 32 minutes approximately. As soon as they started a song, I mean, Beatle boots, Beatle suits, the works. As soon as they started a song, everybody recognized it, and the decibels went so you could barely hear the music, but you could watch them. And if Paul did his little thing, it got louder. And if Ringo did his thing, it got louder. I mean, it was phenomenal. And they came on and off the stage, and literally girls were rushing the stage, fainting in their seats, and trying to throw themselves onto the stage and passing out. I mean, I was like, wow, where am I? And I was young for my age. Seattle was a young place to grow up. But after that, things started exploding.
Wow.
So the Beatles, that was it.
That's a great memory. And
I started
it is amazing that they only played 30-minute shows. I mean, and that's what I've always heard, that basically you couldn't hear the music, but it was just the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, soon after that, I took a sort of girlfriend of mine to the movies to see A Hard Day's Night. And even in the theater, this was the Paramount Theater in Seattle. It had like 3 sections. It went up very high. It was packed to the rafters. Even there, when the song would come on, people in the movie audience would start screaming. It was very frustrating trying to watch the movie.
Wow. I'm going to read a couple of comments from our people and then get back to Lloyd. Denise writes, because they asked early influences. Yes. Denise writes, Pink Floyd, great show. And the Rolling Stones at Candlestick Park.
Yes.
Wanda wants to sing 8 days a week with you. And Wanda also writes, Lloyd, I like your Shalom poster in the background. It was music that kept us teens in the 60s from going batshit crazy, i.e. John Lennon, Bob Marley. She's sending you hugs from Texas. So thank you, Wanda.
Blessings, Pete.
And Storm writes, Pete. I'm wondering if that's Pete Townsend. So now you went to high school at a pretty famous high school. You went to the same high school that Quincy Jones and Jimi Hendrix went to.
And they were before my time. Let's be clear about that.
Okay.
Not that old. But yeah, they both graced the halls of Garfield High School in Seattle. It was a wonderful place. There was a semblance and a bit of an agreement about racial integration and what a wonderful place, and the picture on the cover of our yearbook was a black hand and a white hand like this. And it was marvelous, but there was a bit of an illusion because there was a whole other scene there. And in my senior year, which was 67, Stokely Carmichael came and spoke in the auditorium, and everything changed overnight. And it was scary and disillusioning for me. And one of my very best friends, his name was Richard George. He had a little musical group, and in our talent show, which was through the roof, he was Richard George and the Elegants. And they were like better than the Temptations in high school. So he was a really close friend. I saw him the next fall on the campus in Seattle at the University of Washington. And I went across the, the, whatever you call it, the center place. I said, "Hey, Richard." And he goes, "My name ain't Richard. Don't call me Richard. My name is," and I can't remember what it was, but it was a adopted African name. Right. It really freaked me out. And I understood that I was living in a sort of bubble, that famous white bubble. Yeah. And it really woke me up to a few different awarenesses that were grounding and sometimes difficult. And the music was the support in that, because I grew up in a Temptations type, vibe.
Right. Wanda's asking, what was it that Carmichael said that was so impactful?
Well, here's the thing. It was an after-school assembly. Not everybody knew about it. I was not there. But whatever he said, I could call it rebel rousing. I could call it let's get real. I just don't know. But even the next day, it was a very, very different feeling. So I didn't see him. But overnight, and this was spring of my senior year, I could say from a certain viewpoint, it started getting weird. But now I would say it started getting real.
Alan, in terms of writing about early influences, Alan writes The British Invasion with the Yardbirds, and it was Pete Seeger.
There you go.
Pete Seeger. For me, it was the Beatles. I can remember watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and that was like really something. And then to be really honest, the Monkees. I was at that age, so I thought the Monkees was so cool. And Davy Jones was my favorite Monkey. And about, maybe 8 years ago, Davy Jones came to the San Francisco Bay Area and did a concert at one of the clubs. So I went to go see him, and he was great. Before the concert begins, he comes running out, and he says, "Hi, I'm Davy's dad, and he'll be with you soon."
Yeah.
As the joke, right? As we all recognize that, he doesn't exactly he looks like we would imagine his dad to look like. And after the show, he came out and he greeted guests, and we chatted for a moment. And he had a heart attack and died about 6 months after that. So, that was for me just kind of like, wow, I've aged to the point where my childhood teen idol, I meet him as an adult, and then he dies of a heart attack, and that's a part of our process of aging, when so many of our icons, it's one thing when it's a Keith Moon dying at an early age from drugs, but when, our icons now are dying because they're at that age, it's a trip, isn't it?
Yeah, when Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison, they all went in the same summer or the same fall, the same year.
And they were all 27 years old.
They were
all 27.
And they were all radical and completely left of center and at the absolute top of their game upon arrival.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of loss.
All right, well, let's continue a little bit with your history, because it is a great history. Yeah. So after high school, you went into the Army Reserves.
I did.
And you survived a POW camp simulation. That was really something. Came home got a job working at a shoe store, working at Nordstrom's, and then you went to the Gold Creek Festival and the Lighter Than
Yes.
Air Fair, and you saw the Doors. Now, I saw the Doors. I saw them at Griffith Park. You saw Led Zeppelin. I saw Zepp at the
Yep.
Forum. Chuck Berry, I never saw. The Byrds, Chicago. I love, he's not just calling it Chicago, but
That's right.
Chicago Transit Authority, which was their original
Yeah.
name and their original album, which is one of the great albums.
Really.
CTA is truly one of the great, it's one of those albums that every song is incredible.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I
what
do
a,
remember being there. In fact, I know because some people saw me there. But other than that, it was a huge wake up, awakening experience. And yeah, that was the start of many things.
yeah.
And then I did more and more that I got to see The Who at that time. I think it was 71. That was by far the best concert I'd ever seen. I couldn't hear for 2 weeks. I think I still have an ear effect from that, but it was worth it. And then in 72, after I had moved to Colorado with a whole gang of, we were called the Greeley Gropers. So I'll let that speak for itself. And we decided to drive from Colorado on about 3 days' notice. My best Seattle friend, who I met at Nordstrom's, called and said, "Hey, you guys want to come see the Rolling Stones?" And I'm in the local record store there before I started my own. And I go, "Hey, you want to go?" And Hurricane said yes. And Long Gone said yes. And pretty soon we had 6 guys. We went to Yellowstone and the Rolling Stones. And that was the all-time show. That, I think, and Bob Marley. Maybe Leonard Cohen, but the list is so long.
Yeah.
That will never be topped. And it was so good, the first show, that we left and all we could say was, "See the Rolling Stones." If anything came out of our mouth, it was, "See the Rolling Stones." So we're driving on the freeway, we're yelling at all the other cars, "See the Rolling Stones." And we go, we have to go back to the second show, which was that evening. And we didn't have tickets and we managed to get in. And Stevie Wonder was the opening act.
Wow.
And so this was so far beyond. And Mick Taylor was the new guitarist at that point. And that was it. When I started little record stores in Greeley, Colorado, that was our motto: "See the Rolling Stones."
I
That was
love
on
it.
all our ads and T-shirts, and I mean, it was fanatical and fun.
I'm loving this, our memories, and I want to read some of the wonderful memories from,
Yeah,
because we're getting a lot of comments in the chat
yeah, I
box.
see.
So Denise writes, loved the Beatles and the Monkees. Wanda writes, cannot leave Harry Belafonte out. Alan Post says, I saw the Doors in Philly and in Boston. And Storm writes, I assume this is still about Pete Seeger. His kids went to the boarding school where my father taught, and we lived in a dorm that Pete was blacklisted. So he'd come and do concerts to help pay for their tuition. Mike Seeger also attended the school, as did Sandy Bull and Kathy Cronkite. Just jamming in the common room when I was a small kid. Beautiful. So back
Sandy
to memories
Bull.
of first shows. Denise writes, Tom Jones at the Circle Star Theater. Wanda writes, Chuck Berry and Little Richard played together at Caesar's Palace. Decades ago, my older sister took me. Um, so my first concert was Jethro Tull, and that was a great first concert. But the concert that I want to point out that really was meaningful for me was the very first time I saw Yes.
Mm.
And we went to the Hollywood Bowl. We had never heard of Yes. We were there to see Black Sabbath. But Yes was the opening act. And even though we were there to see Black Sabbath, we were so blown away by Yes that when they were done, we couldn't even handle Black Sabbath's music. And about all of a sudden, Black Sabbath sounded just like off. We left halfway through Black Sabbath, went to Tower Records to buy whatever Yes albums we could find. And that started my lifelong love of the band Yes. And I'm happy to say that I later met John Anderson on multiple occasions and even spent time with him at his home in San Luis Obispo. So that was certainly for me my most meaningful early age concert. Um, so,
Oh,
and
that's
it's
great.
it's wonderful having these memories, isn't it?
Yeah. Just sitting here, being in a radio type atmosphere. I did some very early radio stuff, and my partner in the record stores, um, we did an occasional radio show in Fort Collins, Colorado. I don't remember the call letters, but we just go in there in a certain state and we would take over. And so one night we made up this skit that talked about a concert we went to. And we were trying to remember what the order of the bands was, who played first, etc. So the three bands were Yes, The Who, and the Guess Who. And so we were talking about who was first? No, Yes was first. Well, guess who? And we did this for like an hour and a half. We went round and round until we couldn't remember anything. And as they say, those were the days. And radio was very familiar to me. And then radio transitioned into being the MC at so many concerts, which was an acquired art to get up in front of an excited, eager, sometimes tentative audience and introduce the band and keep it personal and not go on too long. And I love doing that. I had a couple good anecdotes about that. But the radio thing went from Greeley. I did a show in Boulder on KGNU for almost 10 years. And that was every Sunday night. It was a very random show. I was DJ Neptune, and I was the velvet voice of the airwaves. And then when I moved to California, I took over the Music from the Hearts of Space slot because Stephen Hill went syndicated. And every week on KPFA, the Pacifica station in Berkeley, I got to do. It started as music from the heartbeats of space because I had more rhythm than Stephen did. And then it became the Heartbeats show. And Heartbeats became a music catalog. And now I'm DJ Heartbeat. So these threads, musical threads through my life really are steady and grounding. And it's my reverential space of tuning in.
Mhm. It's beautiful, and I think one of the things that's coming up with this conversation is we all can relate to those early musical influences. It brings back, I love what Wanda said, this interaction will forever keep us young. And that's exactly right, Wanda. That's exactly right. Um, it will keep us forever young to remember these moments. And when we play the music, even if it's, I mean, a lot of the albums I play, my favorite music was music from the 70s, pretty much.
Mhm.
And, that music, it's 750 years old or more. And it's just like, wow, wow. Of course, there's the new Beatles documentary, which I have not seen yet, but a few of my friends have said it's terrific. It's the Get Back.
Fantastic.
Have you watched it?
I watched part one. I was sad when it was over, and I can't wait for part two. It's so live. I mean, it's the whole thing, how they work together, the brilliance, the humor, and each one of them shown vividly. Wow, can't wait for the rest of it. I don't know why it took them so long, but I'm glad it's out.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I've been listening to the audio book of Phil Collins telling his story. Um, and Phil, when he was 19 years old, uh, actually came in and played congas on a George Harrison song from All Things Must Pass. And his story of what it was like for him meeting the Beatles and desperately trying to fit in the one afternoon that he's there, drumming, and how that influenced him. And then many, many years, and what ended up happening was they cut it. They didn't use, Phil Spector was producing that album, All Things Must Pass. And so, of course, Phil, when the album comes out, he's all excited. He gets the album and looks in the liner notes. His name's not on the liner notes. He listens to the song, and they had cut his conga part. And so, years later, once he was famous, he meets George Harrison. And he and George get to know each other. And he kind of says, we met before when I was young. I played congas on, for you. And George was like, oh, sorry, don't remember it, bub. But Phil, of course, kept getting triggered into his younger self. So he kept bringing it up, right? Well, finally, Phil gets a package sent to him from George Harrison. And George says, hey, Phil, we went back and we found those tapes. And even though you didn't make it on the album, here are the original tapes. So you might want to listen and you might be able to find yourself. And so Phil, now he's an adult, but he's listening to the tapes, taking him back to his childhood, or to when he's young. And he hears himself play the congas. And then he hears George say, oh, that sounds awful. Cut it. Well, George re-recorded and put that in there as a practical joke to play on adult Phil. It didn't really happen, right? But yeah. He added that just to give him the, And so the next time they saw each other, George said, oh, did you find yourself on those tapes? And Phil said, well, yeah. Did you even know that you said, wow, that sounds horrible. It cuts, you cut it. And George starts laughing, and then he realized that it was just a big joke.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So there you have it. All right. So let's move on with the incredible story of Lloyd.
Yeah.
So tell us about when you first started Backroads Music.
Yes. Well, before Backroads, there was the Finest record store. And that was a whole decade worth. And when I got ready to move, which was as soon as I graduated, which was a miracle from college, and I went to Greeley, Colorado to join up with my cousin Glenn. We grew up next door to each other, same age. And he was in Greeley for a year before I was. And he said, you got to come out to Greeley. You can do whatever you want there. I'm going, well, that's a very good recommendation. That's the billboard I've been looking for. So we had a few of our teenage years separate. He moved to Southern Cal. And then we reconnected, which I can say I helped to create. I showed up at his front door in Beverly Hills and said, hey, yo. And we realized we were on the same music path, buying records like crazy. And then we started writing to each other. Have you heard the Allman Brothers yet? And do you know about Dave Edmunds of Love Sculpture? And it was wide and varied. And so when I drove out to Greeley, I'd never been east of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And off I went, pulling a little trailer that had my record album collection, which outweighed my car. And we put our album collections together and had 500 duplicates. And that became the starting inventory, 500 used records in the Finest used record store. And this was not a strong work ethic. We were open from 12 to 5. We'd arrive late. We'd close down the middle of the day for health breaks. And then we'd close at 5, but we'd close early. Our customers were going, you guys are never open. And we had a plan. People would trade in record albums and that would continue. But all that happened was people came in and bought albums and we ran out of inventory. And so we closed for the summer. So let's try again. Went traveling, all that good stuff. And then we started, and what turned the corner, we had a big sign on our tiny 200 square foot store that said the Finest used record store, with a Norman Rockwell picture of the cowboy with the mustache that's very famous. We figured we could borrow that because it fit. So the new Rolling Stones album came out, and we couldn't wait to get a used copy. So we got a wholesale account and crossed the used off of the sign. It now said the Finest record store. And we never turned back. Opened a second store in Fort Collins. It was an overnight success. We'd have the big one, everything on sale. We did $10,000 in Fort Collins in one day and $5,000 in Greeley. And we're going, holy, whoa. We've created a monster. Did that for a long time, worldwide auction, all kinds of innovative stuff. It was a super fun store. I think we sold turquoise jewelry, sleeping bags, Bong and Olufsen stereos, anything that we would personally benefit from, we decided to get some free ones by selling them. So it was just the perfect, ultimate, typical story of going for it.
That's a fantastic story. That really
Yeah, it was
is.
called The Finest Record Store. It's really legendary. And it went all the way till, I think, 2007. When I was 29, which was the 7th year of the store, I realized I wanted to retire before I was 30.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't going to be forever, but I thought, this is honestly what I thought, I'll get some experience in retirement. So when I do it later, I'll be better at it. And that so worked. And I retired and I met a singer named Kate Wolf, who remains prominent in my life, in my ears, in my heart. And my favorite song of hers was called Backroads. And so with no experience whatsoever, completely falling in love with her in Golden Gate Park. And again, this was a meeting that was accidental. I won't go into that part, but it was amazing. And I said, hey, why don't you come out to Colorado and we'll do some concerts? And I had never done that before. And she said, and this was like, you know, bring me back the broom of the Wicked Witch. It was like an impossible mission. She said, get me 10 dates in Colorado and get me to open the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, and I'll show up on your front porch. So I went back to Greeley, determined. It took me about 2 weeks, and I had 11 dates all over the state. And I told the guy who ran the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, you have to have Kate open the festival. He goes, I don't know who she is. I go, you have to. I'm not taking no for an answer. She has a song called Telluride. It'll be the best thing you ever did. And I think just to get me to go away, he said, okay. And so there was Kate on my front porch. And we did this whole state tour, all my friends, my wife, Deborah, who I knew back in the day. She was at several of these concerts and she became friends with Kate. And then we went to Minneapolis and she was on Prairie Home Companion at 8 in the morning. And then we went to the Calgary Winnipeg Folk Festival where I was backstage as Kate's friend. And I met the greatest folk music singers in the world. And they were all there. And I was the fly on the wall. And then we drove all the way across the Canadian Rockies to Vancouver. And that was an even more amazing festival. And went down the coast. She lived in Berkeley. Mount St. Helens blew its top. It was just adventures every step of the way. And I got there and I said, okay, Kate, I want to be your manager. I'm going to get, you know, Neil Young and Emmylou Harris and John Denver and everyone to sing your songs. You're the best. And she said, surprisingly, you know, that's not what I want to do. And I went, wow, who changed the script? So I went to meet Will Ackerman, who I knew from the record store days, the founder of Windham Hill, a true innovator still to this day. And I said, hey, Will, I'm going to take your artists out on tour. I have lots of experience now from one tour. And he goes, touring? Oh, hell no. Nobody needs touring. You go back to Colorado, you know everybody, take this stack of records. This guy's going to do really well. And I was like a 12-year-old going, gee, you mean I could be a Windham Hill distributor? And the artist was George Winston, who became the biggest success ever in that realm. So back I went, kind of reluctantly back in the music business, started adding new age artists, which is why I'm known as the world's leading authority of new age music. But I'm a rock and roller like you are. Wow. And I love reggae. That's my first love. And being the new age king has always been humorous to me. Wow. But I started going around to stores, doing this thing, joined a kind of cult community, let it sit there, had a friend take care of it. And pretty soon, Backroads became a going concern or growing concern. And I moved from Colorado to Marin County, and Backroads Music became those Backroads distributors at that point. It became an overnight success. And I got to take artists who became icons like Yanni, Lorena McKennitt, George Winston, on and on. And they were nobodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to them on the phone. And I go, can I sell your albums? Well, I guess so. Are you going to pay me? And it was like so grassroots. And then they all became, amazing.
Wow.
And Yanni, his story was something. We'll save that for another time. But what a great guy.
You bring back memories. I was a big fan. I moved to Marin in 1976.
Yeah.
And so I lived there most of my life. And I can remember buying Windham Hill albums. And I had George Winston's Winter Solstice album. And I can remember playing it, in the winter time. I'd kind of calm down and that beautiful. And I remember, even though Will Ackerman was famous for owning Windham Hill, he actually was a beautiful guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember playing his guitar albums. And I knew you because I knew Backroads music. Because growing up in Marin, in Fairfax, Backroads music was like the hip play. There was village music in Mill Valley, and I lived in Mill Valley, so that's where I normally went. But the two big stores in Marin County were Backroads music and village music.
Yeah. And Backroads, we did parking lot sales and open warehouse sales, but primarily we were a wholesaler. We supplied like 1,800 record stores, metaphysical bookstores, retreat centers. And this was just everybody you've ever heard of.
Mhm.
And we also had a mail order catalog, which became called the Heartbeats catalog. And I think I did 25 of those, usually starting at 11 at night, and just sitting there and writing these catalogs and designing and choosing the album covers. And boy, it grew really fast. I started hiring friends, had only friends, ran out of friends, hired other people. I think we got to 26 employees. It was a raging machine. And we would have meetings because I was very community, thinking I was very conscious oriented. And we'd have meetings sometimes. And we even had a little bay next to the warehouse. And sometimes I would talk the whole time. Sometimes I wouldn't talk the whole time. And there was a lot of, community interaction and different storylines. And it was amazing. Like $6 million was our peak year.
Wow.
And this was a little business.
Yeah.
There were other distributors. We were David, they were Goliath. They had more lawyers on staff than we had salespeople. And, great friends like Ron Tofinelli and Betty Tim and James Haig. These people were employees / close friends for all this time that Backroads had its run. And then the economy went backwards, I think 1989 or 1990, and things stopped working. We were very undercapitalized. And I thought that was the end. But as it was, it survived and got smaller. And I let go of wholesale, stuck with the mail order catalog, and they continued for quite some time. I think 2008 was where that all changed. And I started producing concerts. I had done a few already, Donna DeLory, she and Tina Malia and Adey Bell and Kristen Hoffman. Those are artists that are like my wife Deborah's honorary daughters.
Well, I wanted to play a couple of little excerpts of some of the music of some of our adopted daughters. And let's start with Kristen Hoffman. Kristen's been on, not only been on Saturday Night Live as a performer, but she now co-hosts every 4 to 6 weeks with me. In fact, we were just talking yesterday, getting ready for the next show she's going to co-host, which will be our first show in January. And Kristen is truly amazing. And so knowing that I was going to have you as my guest, I thought it'd be kind of fun to play something from Kristen on Saturday Night Live, and then something from Adey Bell, since you introduced her to us. For Kristen, I've chosen a segment where she brought in her girlfriend Kaishi Chai, and spontaneously they created a music and dance sequence together, all spontaneous, not rehearsed. And they did this live. And of course, Kristen's at home in New York, upstate New York. Kaishi is in New York City, and all by the magic of Zoom. Let's take a look at what they created. And you are, and Crystal, by the way, sends her love. She knows that I've got you as my guest today, and you really helped put Kristen on the map. You have been a big, big part of helping her to become quite successful. So let's take a look at
roll
Kristen.
them.
All right, here we go. Oh, let me make sure that I've got the share sound. There we go.
Such an honor to be here tonight, and I can't imagine a better subject than honoring our body temple to celebrate with music and dance. And it's always just one of my most favorite experiences in the world to collaborate with Keishi. And this is going to be an improvisation, so I will be diving into a solome improvisation musically, which I think of as soul light, weaving with Om, the vibration of the universe. And Keishi is also going to be improvising to the music, and we're just going to be listening to each other and tuning into our bodies and to each other and to this beautiful planet and see what wants to come forward. And I like to invite everyone who's watching. This is a co-creative process, so send your intentions into the music, into the dance. We will be literally interpreting and feeling and sensing your visions as well. So here we go. Let's see what happens. children of her womb. We are the children of her light. We are the children woven together, woven together. Tuning into your body temple, tuning into your body temple, tuning into our body temple. Tuning into your body temple, listening, listening, tuning and listening.
I get chills. The moment when she hits her first note, I always just get like this rush.
Mm. Such a dear, dear, dear friend. Met her through her music and in Santa Barbara on the beach and at the Bella Gaia show, which I actually got to produce, which was one of my biggest productions. And nothing like it, and nobody like Kristen.
Yeah, and she's
as a human.
Such just pure love, pure
Yeah.
love. Well, tell us about that concert. Tell us about the Bella Gaia Festival in concert.
Well, if you know about Bella Gaia, it's a whole celebration of the Earth from space with incredible NASA footage, and Kenji Williams as the founder visionary who put it together. A full-on musical group, a giant screen, one or two dancers, Kristen being the vocalist, and this drummer from New York, I can't remember his name, he was beyond belief. But the images are accompanied by showing what's really happening in the geothermal space world and everything about the Earth and charts, and it's totally educational and mind expanding. But the brilliance of it, and I was so inspired, I brought it to Marin. I don't know if you were there or not, but we did it at the Marin Center, a very large venue. We had 450 walk-up tickets the day of the event, which was completely out of control and saved me from losing a small fortune, which is always a risk. And it was so great and getting close with everyone. And then I did it the next year in San Francisco, in the city. I can't remember the name of the venue, right downtown across from City Hall. Anyway, we did really well there. We sold out. And such an experience. The people that I have met, and I'll give you one clue to that. My concert motto is only work with friends.
Mm.
The couple of times I skipped that part and I went, this is a great artist. Wow, he's just like so-and-so, but I skipped that part. And there's a group called Bright Side Blue. I'm gonna suggest for Saturday Night Alive. They're in Nevada City. I saw them in Ashland. They played for 2 minutes. And I went, oh, we're totally lifelong friends. So friendship does not take time. It takes listening. and healing. And so that's been a great motto. And I look at this list of friends and how fortunate am I?
You
And
know,
there's anecdotes.
it's
And,
so true. I'm looking at
yeah,
the
the
list of
same.
people that you've
Yeah,
done concerts with, and so I'm just going to name some of the people that I've been blessed to become friends with.
sure.
Olox, I love her. She's fantastic. David Premal and Miten, they were on Saturday Night Live last night, as was, I also saw Karen Drucker. Gary Malkin, I've known Gary for 30 years. Um, Suzanne Sterling, I love Suzanne. And I loved Collie's Angels. Did you ever get a chance?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, those three ladies, they did a, reunion and they were on Saturday Night Live together doing a reunion.
Oh boy. Yeah, she had a higher calling because she was destined for musical stardom, and she created off the mat into the world and took it all over the world and went where it was most needed, yoga and spiritual practice. And I love Suzanne too. I miss her.
That's who he's talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, all these amazing, wonderful people, and really, the names that we're mentioning, they're all wonderful human beings. They happen to be remarkably talented, but really, they're all wonderful, wonderful human beings. Elijah Ray, Ayla, Ayla Nereo. I just talked to Ayla last week. She's on her way to Egypt. And Cornflower, one of our Cornflower is one of our absolute most favorite popular human beings and part of Saturday Night Live. So, Om at last. Om lives right around the corner from me. We're both in Hidden Valley Lake. And when he was with Lost at Last used to stay at my home in Beverly Glen when they would come to Los Angeles. And literally all four of them would would find, beds for them. And they would stay. I had a home called the Love Temple. And they Lost at Last would stay at the Love Temple. And now Om lives around the corner from me.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, Lost at Last at Open Secret so many years ago with black light paint. And that was where ecstatic dance came from.
Wow. Yeah, that's true.
Right there, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, it's so good. Some of the anecdotes. I'll share one that was relevant with Deva and Miten, because I met them so long ago. Even on stage, they will still tell the story. Yes, back in 1998, we were in Germany just getting started. And our fax machine, remember those? Our fax machine would ring in the middle of the night, and we'd go, oh, there's Lloyd ordering more tapes. I wish he could figure out the time change. And so that was great. And we did many shows, and it was such an honor. And the Scottish Rite Temple in Berkeley, Oakland, actually, one of my favorite venues.
I used to see Ram Dass there. Remember how Ram Dass always talked out there?
It was so good. And I'm standing in the wings, and I'm at that point where I'm starting to really relax into being the MC. And this was, 1,400 people. So I'm standing in the wings, and I feel this presence behind me, and I hear this voice that goes, "Are you nervous?" A strong German accent. And I turn around, and it's Deva. And I go, "What?" And she goes, "Are you nervous?" And I go, "No, actually, I'm starting to really settle into, this role." And she goes, "Oh, that's good." And then she waits a minute. She comes, "Are you sure you're not nervous?" And I said, "You're making me really nervous." And so that was what we did. I went out on stage bolstered by that interaction. And then a couple of years later, we're doing it again. And I snuck up behind her as she was ready to go out. And of course, you know what I said. I said, "Are you nervous?" And we just laughed and all those things. At Rue du Mandir, which is a beautiful center in Berkeley, I was part of that spiritual community for a long time with Najai. And it was an honor. And I was given the role to do a monthly concert in that beautiful center, which I did for about 10 years. And so that was why I got the reputation of being the kirtan music guy, even though that was just part of it, a very deep part of it. And when we first had Donna, DeLory, there were 25 people. We had Snatam Kaur with about 25 people. We had Tina Malia, and she brought as her opening act, Blaine Lyon.
God bless Blaine, who passed last year.
Absolutely. And so that experience, and everybody, Suzanne Sterling, you know, Lisbeth Scott, all the singers, the Mayapuris, the Kirtaniyas, Prajna, Vieira, and Mukti. She remains to me the most amazing singer in that whole realm. And I don't like to say most amazing, but I'll make an exception for Prajna. And I got to manage Mukti and take them on a tour.
Wow.
We did 4 dates north of Marin and 4 dates south of Marin. That was kind of a first tour. And boy, was there a lot of infighting and bad feelings after that one.
Ooh.
But it had its time, and Prajna remains. I want to get her to come on Saturday Night Live.
That'd be wonderful.
David Estes, truly.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So all those things, and helping with Jennfer Berezan to do her praises for the world and songs for all beings. And these were 2,000 people events. Mm-hmm. And the first one, also at Scottish Rite, I think 1,400 people. And there were about 50 of us men in the audience. And it was just beyond her vision and everything about Jennfer. You know, it's just like so much richness and deep love in these exchanges. Mm-hmm. And then I get to go sit in the front row as if there's no one else in the house.
All right, so now let's come into present time.
Yes.
You moved to Relax Mansion, the home that I met you in when we had lunch together in Ashland. And you're about to roll out a body of work, and you're calling it Relaxpansion. Tell us about what Relaxpansion is.
Yeah, well, my wife Deva and I have been teaching what we're calling in the one classes, and now they're saying yes to love classes. Over 10 years, we're about to start our 45th 8-week course on Zoom now, so you can be anywhere. So in the midst of that, we started making principles. We just had our 10th anniversary. We've created a lot of beauty together in community. And we moved to Ashland just over 3 years ago with zero acclamation. We were embraced here. People in Marin said, "Why are you moving to Ashland?" Well, this will be a good lead up. My first response was Adey Bell. That's how close and grateful we are to be in each other's lives. We're going to be in the live audience of 6 people for Adey's Wishcraft tonight. So you can look that up too. But Relax Mansion and Relaxpansion, I invented something in this life, which I feel incredibly blessed. And that's the idea of Relaxpansion. And I say that to people, yep, Relaxpansion, and there's this pause. What? Relaxpansion. Oh, I like that. And so I'm going, I'm onto something. So now it has principles, applications, chapter headings. I'm going to create a beautiful book, online podcasts, apply it to movement, because I've worked with Gabrielle Roth, or I did for years and years. I became her informal music guru. That was an honor. So all the principles of the teachers I've had and the communities I've tapped into and been an integral part of. And I'll tell you the principles because they're really simple. Number 1, relaxation is the key. Without that, there's not a next step. And relaxation is never more than 1 breath away. Maybe 2 if it's super intense. So that's the first one. The second principle is curiosity is the cure. The cure for anxiety, the cure for having wounds and patterns continually arise and feel like you're being attacked by them. And curiosity says, I wonder what's going to happen. And my commitment is to be present to the unfolding so I don't miss it. It's really simple. It's no longer needing to know before taking a step. I'm curious. And the third one is everything is a reason to open your heart. Nothing is a reason to close it. And these are very simple, and the exploration and receiving these from so many different perspectives and angles around the wheel, that's the study of relaxpansion. And it's that simple. And I'm going to be certifying and, allowing relaxpansion teachers. And it's going to be a whole non-movement. And so I'm excited about it. When you mentioned I've done several festivals, what I've done is 300 concerts. I've done 3 festivals in Ashland. And now the festival went from being called Bhakti Village and Ray of Light, where I had Elijah Ray and Cornflower and Sasha Rose. Woo! Elijah's my main artist. No matter who I have at any gathering, music, Elijah's the headliner. Let's just be clear about that. Doesn't matter who I have. If I have the Beatles, Elijah's the headliner. So that's a fun thing. But anyway, Relaxpansion is now the festival. And so hopefully that'll happen next June. Not sure in this age of uncertainty. And I wonder what's going to happen. So it all ties around. And I don't know if there'll be another one. But right now, Relaxpansion is this container, this unlimited container. And the festival is part of it rather than the other way around. So I love how it's happening. All I do is listen.
Well, it's 11:11 a.m. That's a magical number here in California. So we're already kind of coming to a close.
Yeah.
I thought we would close with music. And you mentioned Adey Bell.
Yes.
And I did not know Adey Bell until you referred her to Saturday Night Live. Immediately loved her and immediately invited her to be my special guest on this show, Sacred Sunday show. So we had her on our All Hallows Eve and then the follow-up Sacred Sunday show the next day. And so we're going to close out by seeing a segment of Adey Bell recorded on October 30th. And Lloyd, thank you so much for just keeping the living music alive and for all your support of all these people that I love and admire and respect. And it was really fun with everybody reminiscing about our early musical concert experiences. And for those of you who watch the replay, because that's most of you going to watch the replay, you can still put into the Facebook page your memories of your favorite moments or your first musical concerts, because it was really fun going back and remembering all that together. And here we go. Let's take a look at Adey Bell in a special costume, her Halloween costume for us. So here we go. Let's pull that up. There we go.
This is the Great Mother. In your eyes sister. You have gone where I am going. Help keep me to my intention. In your beauty I see all. Hello, great mother. Bring our consciousness to our hearts. Fill us over, keep us open. In your eyes we find ourselves. In your eyes we find ourselves. I feel her coming, and the wind blows. I feel her coming, and the rain comes driving down. I feel her coming, and there's fire in her eyes. Fire in her eyes. Fire in her eyes. Sister, make your circle bright. Weave your web of dark and light. Earth, air, fire, water. Bind us as one. Bind us as one. Mister, guard this sacred night. Wield your word with strength and might. North, south, east and western. Bind us as one. Bind us as one. Bind us as one. Bind us as one.
Oh, thank you, Adey Bell. And thank you, dear Lloyd, for introducing us to her.
Yes, such a pleasure.
Wow. While she's playing, I did take a look on our Facebook page and some comments. Diane Dobda sends you lots of thank yous. She says, thank you, Lloyd, for your experience on the music scene. And then she points out that she went to see Alice Cooper, and Alice Cooper was the second act with Spirit. She said, wow, talk about a contrast. Mo Stevenson writes, Scout, this show is amazing. Love, love, love. Thank you, Mo. And thank you to Colleen and everybody else watching on Facebook. Really appreciate all of you and look forward to seeing your future comments. Lloyd, how do people reach you? If anybody wants to reach you, what's the best way?
Well, by email, I always like that.
Okay.
I'm an old school email guy, and that's easy. It's Lloyd with 2 L's, LLOYD, at well with 2 L's, WELL, Lloyd@well.com.
Great.
Yeah, I don't mind phone calls. My phone number is a text. Also, I think I'm the only concert producer who puts his personal phone number on every flyer.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense. You want to know what's going on, call the guy in charge. So that's 415-847-1144.
There you go. It's in the chat
Yeah,
box.
and if you want to contact me, I do still sell CDs, if you remember those things. They work really well to a small but loyal following. I make a best of the year list every year, just finished 2021. And I'm happy to talk music with people. If you're interested in our Saying Yes to Love class, which is an 8-week master class, and it's a beautiful thing. I don't know if we're full for January, but as soon as one's over, we schedule the next one. So those are things. And the concerts right now, maybe a couple house concerts. We want to have Adey Bell and Travis Puntarelli because they were such an awesome combination on Saturday Night Alive. But
Yeah.
and I'll just kind of close in saying the 2 values that I have always most valued are friendship and music. So I only work with friends, and I create the most beautiful, welcoming, everyone is welcomed and thanked, these gorgeous concerts. And so that's what it's all about. Beautiful. I'm also a strong practitioner of personal disarmament, dating back to when I became a conscientious objector, which was for real. It wasn't escape, it was understanding. And learning the art of receiving, the great lost art. So,
well, Lloyd, with you, 2 things. I certainly share music with you, and I'm grateful to now be sharing friendship with you as well.
Me too, and so much more to come. And
absolutely,
kudos and honoring everything you're doing. I thought I was busy.
Yeah, I'm kind of a crazy man.
Yeah, ditto.
Lloyd, thank you. Give Deborah my appreciation. Say hello to her for me.
I sure will.
And I will look forward to our next connection. We'll talk probably sometime this week.
All right, very good. See you soon.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. God's blessings. And remember, we can make any day, any moment sacred by choosing to see the divine in all. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
All yes.